What is up, ladies, gentlemen, everyone inside and out? My name is All Hail Buckets. Welcome to the Crubcast. I'm here with my compatriots. Today, we are going to be talking about balance in video games. Quick, just round robin of who's here. Chris, Mykonos fan, say hi.
I love Balan Wonderworld.
Sean, say hi. Wolf Chaos-on.
I'm a compatriot today.
Our very lycanthropic friend, Sean, and Moriarty. Moriarty, say hi.
Wow.
Fellas, is balance ruining video games?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it is, personally.
Yeah. And also, before we go any further, let's also make the distinction. We are talking about balance, not accessibility. That's a totally different subject. So anything that we're saying does not have to do with accessibility. That's a totally different thing. So just so you know, throwing that out there before you start yelling at me, specifically me, no one else, just yell at me.
They intertwine, but we're not smart enough to have the nuance for that discussion today, I don't think, basically. So don't be too mean to us.
It's just a separate discussion. Like, we're talking about it more, at least the way that I'm thinking about it, right, is more from a macro perspective, more from like a gameplay perspective, and a fun perspective. Mm-hmm. Less so from a, definitely not from an accessibility standpoint. I think that's a separate discussion, and I think there are more poignant things to be said there, which we may perhaps explore at a later date. Subscribe to the Crubcast if you haven't to see that. Anyway, Chris, you go first. What are your thoughts on balance in game? Do you have any strong feelings on balance in gaming? Do you have any things that you've thought about over the years that are balance
I was going to make you explain how this topic came to your mind because I'm curious what made you come up with it.
Right. So what made me come up with it?
I don't have a lot to say.
That's incredibly valid. So, I mean, hopefully you can bounce off of what I'm thinking, because I've been playing a lot of Helldivers 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been constantly patches. And that game is PvE, right? So the patches to me seem largely unnecessary, because it's not like you're playing against another human being that's not having fun because you can just kill them quickly or whatever, right? Or win the game quickly. The game is still not particularly easy. The gameplay loop is well defined. And I just, my examples, right? I use the Breaker Incendiary for folks who have played Helldivers 2, and I use the Quasar Cannon, and they nerfed both of those things to make them the Breaker Incendiary has 4 shots now, and the Quasar Cannon takes way longer to cool down. It just takes away the fun from people who use those weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it can be argued that it switches up the gameplay a little bit, but at least for me, that's where I arrived at. And I remembered and I reminisced on the days of Modern Warfare 2. I'll be brief in this. Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty, the original one, not the remake or whatever.
Yeah.
Had a good balance of non-balanced weapons and gameplay mechanics. They had guns with no recoil. You could have every single person on your game have a chopper gunner and use them basically all at once, right? Mm-hmm. You could they had FMJ bullets that went through basically any cover. You could spawn noob tube. You could spawn throwing knife. You could when you played domination, if you had 2 of the 3 points, you could just camp people out at the third one. Mm-hmm. And if you were on the other team, the match was over fast enough that it didn't matter. You were often on both sides of it.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think that was incredibly fun. And Call of Duty, over the years, has been trying to just complexify and make it that you can't, make your classes the way that they had it in that game, because they want balance.
Yeah, they want balance, and it feels very esportsy, if that makes any sense. There seems to be a big emphasis, which I get because esports does, generate a lot of income, but it seems very much let's take out the fun and really focus on the competitive aspect of it, even if a lot of people do just play for fun or casual. That's something that I kind of have a lot of trouble seeing is whenever a company or development team, they kind of try to shift everything to go with what they think the competitive scene wants or what the competitive scene is kind of, yelling at. One of the things that I immediately think of is Halo Infinite. Seeing the single player physics of that game and the multiplayer physics are two totally different things that still bothers me to this day. I had to bring Halo Infinite back up. I know it's been a long ride, but it's one of those things that's like, just let us. I understand that esports is huge. I get it. I totally understand that, but it's like some companies are kind of doing it for like the esports that aren't really, generating as much revenue as, say, League of Legends and what have you. And when it comes to like single player stuff, it really bothers me because it's like, I understand, like, patching difficult things, but like, let me just have fun. Let me do some things. Let me just bash my head against the wall for like 10 minutes and then hate being alive because, my gosh, Radon, I hate you, you stupid raid boss in an Elden Ring game. And then they made him easy.
Right. And sorry.
What specifically happened in Helldivers? Because I had friends in my activity list who had played 0 hours in the last 2 weeks, complain about the new patch and leave negative Steam reviews. So
I haven't even played in the last 2 weeks. I'm not even talking about that patch. I'm talking about like just the the patches along the way, basically. Like I know like a couple weeks ago, like when I was playing incredibly heavily, like I said, the Quasar took way longer to cool down. They nerfed the damage on it. The Breaker Incendiary, like I said, now only has like you only can spawn with 4 clips, like total.
Did they do something dramatic this time to cause it? Because there is like an outrage.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened in this most recent update, to be completely honest with you.
Okay.
Perhaps we'll save that for the exclusive pre and post show that you can get if you subscribe to patreon.com/Crub. Follow us at Crub Official everywhere except for Twitch, where it is Crub_official, where you can catch us live at round about 6:30, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we do an exclusive pre and post show that are later available after the fact for patrons. Patreon.com/Crub. We have hours and hours and hours of content. Check us out there. Try it for 1 month. I am sure that you'll love it. If you like anything we say here, it's very similar, perhaps a little more relaxed, and very worth it in my opinion. So, yeah, I perhaps we'll look that up in the post show unless you're looking it up now. But
I am, but I don't understand what I was seeing. I just assumed that was the impetus for today, so I was like, oh, let me segue this real efficiently.
I was thinking about Call of Duty specifically.
Which is fair.
They adjusted flame effects to work more realistically and changed the incendiary breaker shotgun to decrease the amount of mags it can hold while simultaneously increasing its recoil, quote BG247.com.
Okay, so I did play post-patch. Yeah, they took away 2 clips that you can have, and it's just like, why? It's PvE.
I see.
Who cares?
I thought something, not to take away from whatever effect that had, I thought something incredibly drastic had happened for people who aren't even playing to be review bombing. So I was like, I think what the hell happened? But
honestly, people are just like that sometimes, and like I don't get that, but like fair enough. I just think nerfing on PvE is weird to me. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, if you're thinking about a fighting game, feels like the balance is perhaps a little more important and integral to the gameplay.
Yeah.
And one could argue that, even in shooters, it is kind of important, right? But I just miss the days of Modern Warfare 2, where everything was broken, and because everything was broken, nothing was broken.
Yeah.
Moriarty.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, Moriarty's, do you have any thoughts on this? Because we haven't heard a lot from M just yet, so I want to bring him in.
Balance is an interesting thing, because if we're gonna have balance, right? Like, what purpose is it going to serve? And typically speaking, you're talking about competitive viability. So if we're talking about competitive viability, it is an esport game, where it's at least something that strives to be an esport or has some sort of team versus team, player versus player, right? If you don't have that, if you don't have the player versus player kind of thing going on there, then there's not really a whole lot of purpose behind balance other than external things such as slowing down gameplay because of battle passes or extending the lifespan of the game, something along those. So I actually have quite a lot of thoughts about it because I've thought about competitive viability for a long time and what makes something competitively viable. And maybe this comes from my career, in Counter-Strike, where I was a high-ranking, player, and I've played with a lot of pro players, and I was Mountain Dew League and all that kind of stuff. So I was concerned about competitiveness and what makes that competitive viability. And then you contrast that against things where the gameplay experience isn't about being the best competitively. And in those cases where it's not about being, if I'm fighting against Sean in a game, right, it's very different than if I'm fighting against Bowser in a game, right?
Yeah.
Super Smash Brothers Melee, right? Wave dashing. Unintended.
Yeah.
Glitch, right? Something that gets added in, but it becomes a part of the gameplay. It becomes a part of the identity of the gameplay. But it doesn't, I feel, even though it became a cornerstone of the competitive gameplay, it doesn't change the gameplay to the point where it's no longer competitively viable. So
right.
It's hard because there's a lot of nuance there, right? Like if we go back as far as like a Quake or a Doom or whatever, right? There's this concept of rocket jumping, which is not intended. It's an unintended glitch that should have been balance patched out. But it wasn't because it was fun, right?
Yeah.
It was fun to shoot a rocket at the ground and jump into the air and then be able to fly around. That's a fun thing. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to look at it from a pretty static viewpoint, it should have been taken out. It's not how the game was intended to be. So I think that sort of these unintended gameplay mechanics and glitches and things that enhance the gameplay end up being something that we're a lot more friendly on versus something that's very, very broken, such as, say, in a Counter-Strike when the revolver first came out, right? The revolver was essentially doing as much damage as a $5,000 rifle, and it was costing $700, right? It was one hit kill. It was fastest firing gun you could have. It was incredibly accurate. I mean, like painfully accurate. It's the most accurate gun in the game. It was the fastest firing gun in the game, and it could kill you in a single shot from anywhere on the map. It was absolutely broken, right? And so it became the kind of thing where everybody's using that gun exclusively. Like, they're not even buying an AK anymore, the gun that is on the cover of the game. You know what I mean? No, now they're buying this $700 pistol because it's better. So when we take a look at the difference between a rocket jump or a wave dash versus the R8 revolver in Counter-Strike, I think that you can make an argument that in a competitive game where there is a team versus team, balancing's very important. Because if it's bad, it's really bad, right? It will change the gameplay. It'll mess it all up. It'll make it unplayable. And somebody has a bad time, right? Like, if you are on the team that is getting absolutely smashed by an overpowered gun that you can't use necessarily, that sucks.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, I'm just going to get my face rocked. All right, cool.
Well,
anyway.
And to be honest, that feels like... You said you had to pay for this gun, or was it like an unlock?
Like you pay for it per match, basically.
Like it's included in the game, but you have to buy. You have an economy in the game, right? Okay. So as you kill somebody, you get money, and you use that money to buy weapons.
I see. So if you're not good enough to get a ton of kills and get up to that level of gun,
well, no, it's very, very cheap. It's very, very cheap. Everybody had the ability to buy it because it was incredibly cheap. It's so cheap that you could buy 2 of them every round. So but it's not so powerful that it's the only gun that gets used.
Yeah. There's no point in using anything else because, that thing's just going to wreck you. Period.
I see. I feel like there does come a delta at which it becomes a problem. Yeah. Right? Because it seems like in this case, the one gun is so much better than all the others that it becomes like just the one that everybody uses.
Right. And as we know with gamers, right, we are going to game the system. It's always going to happen. You're always going to choose the most efficacious way to play. And if that means that you sit there and you smash a rock over and over again for 3 hours, you're going to do that because it's the one that gives you, the most money and the most goals and the most experience and whatever.
Yeah.
With certain things, if they're broken, they change the gameplay. And I think that that's a very valid way to look at it. I think your issue, right, is that, well, it's a kind of a mix, right? First of all, you have sort of the frequent balance packages, because, boy, Helldivers, it patches a lot. And
all
it patches
the
frequently.
time. All the time.
Like, it not
like
only does it patch a lot frequently, it
Yeah.
patches a lot of stuff each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what I did yesterday is nowhere near what is going on today. It's like,
I can see that being annoying because you kind of fall into a groove, right? And you're like, if you come back the next day.
It's like mental muscle memory, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then it just goes away.
What is the second part of it, Em?
Well, it's several. So, like, first of all, it's disrupting your strategies. It's disrupting your muscle memory, both physical muscle memory and mental muscle memory. It changes the core experience sometimes, because you go into the game now and you're expecting that you're going to use a quasar, and then you're not using it, right? That's not the experience that you wanted to have that day. I think that that's something that's worth, considering as well. There's League of Legends is another game that like frequently reworks entire champions, right? So they have lots of heroes and they'll choose a hero and bam, that whole hero is going to be changed. Or they'll change the items that work with it, and now you as the player are being forced to adapt, right? And continuously adapt. And sometimes that's not fun. Sometimes that's not a good time. Maybe I don't want to have to do this. I think the question really does... I'm sorry, Chris?
I remember in Dota 2, like I was trying to learn that for a while, and when you're not used to that genre, that's a game you have to put some time into to like learn how to actually optimally play it. And coming on some days, and the character I was trying to learn to get used to the game being completely different would certainly throw off everything I thought I knew about that game and send me down like another 2 hours of like, what am I doing? Why am I playing this?
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Well.
Was it? I have a question. Like, was it demotivating for you, like, to play the game, or like, is it? Did you just not really care?
Kind of, right? Like, I was playing it to play with someone at the time, so I was going to keep going either way, I guess. But if it had just been for my own personal like investment, I probably would have dropped off at one point for sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And different game genres require more unique approaches, right? So a competitive multiplayer game like a Dota, it has these distinct sort of challenges, right? You can have a broken character, you can have whatever, and if you've got 50 different characters, each one needs to be viable against all 50 others, right? In each case, that one character has to be viable against 50 other characters, and now we're on to character 2. Well, that one also has to be viable against 50 other characters. So you have these sort of distinct challenges compared to a cooperative PvE experience, right? Overwatch has a much different hero balancing in order to have a fair PvP versus something like Diablo or whatever, where you're focusing on making various builds that feel powerful in PvE. A game that maybe has PvP, but not so much the goal there.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is, again, the player perception, right? So the perception of balance and what that drives in these games, right, is very important, more than anything else. When I look at the game and I go, well, you balance the R8 and CS, that's a good patch. Oh, but you balance the Quasar, that's a bad patch, right? Like, there's a lot of player perception there, up to and including whether or not something even needs to be balanced. I'm going to tell you a very quick story about a game called Wolfenstein. It was Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and it was a PvP, team versus team, deathmatch and capture the flag game. And in Return to Castle Wolfenstein, people complained because the German forces, or I guess their Axis forces, were using the MP40, and the Allied forces were using the Thompson submachine gun. And the Axis felt that it was very, very unfair because the Thompson was so much more powerful than the MP40. Just plain and simple, so much more powerful than the complain. These two guns had the exact same stats. The exact same stats. Well, they were not in any way different, but you couldn't get over the fact that people felt that it was more powerful consistently. And what was interesting is that if you looked at the wins and if you looked at the kill rate, people using the Thompson machine gun were getting more kills consistently, and the Allied teams were winning consistently more, right? So the fact that they have the exact same stats was irrelevant. It is, in fact, a better gun. And what they determined about that gun is that the sound was thunkier, right? It had this sort of like a which made people so it was the feel of it. And as people were shooting this gun, they felt like they were shooting a more powerful gun that was capable of doing more damage, and it actually changed how aggressively they played the game and how sort of superhero-y they were willing to get into a fight. They felt invincible with this more powerful gun, even though it was statistically the same. So they changed the MP40, they made it a little bit thunkier, and they noticed that it went back to a 50-50 split. So balancing doesn't necessarily need to be, whether or not we're nerfing or buffing something. It doesn't necessarily need to be like an actual change to the gameplay. Sometimes it's just little things like this that allow you to kind of make the game more fair, more fun. And I think, again, in a competitive setting, this makes a lot of sense, right? It's once we get to these sort of PvE experiences, or even a cooperative PvE kind of thing, where like you're not necessarily playing alone, right? Like playing single player game, no balance. Balance doesn't matter, right? We're just trying to get the and I'm sorry, but Sean's camera is not
I know.
Really
It doesn't like me right now.
Well, it's really distracting to me.
It's fine.
So there is sort of like, in a single player game, do we need to have balancing? And as long as it's within the vision of the game, right, you can have a Dark Souls weapon that's too powerful. That's fine, right?
You can just...
Well, here's the thing: is it fun once you have a Dark Souls weapon that can kill a boss in one hit?
But you can just choose not to use it. Like, it's not...
But players aren't going to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, players are always going to play the most efficacious way that they can. And so if you have a weapon that will consistently kill a boss in a single hit, is that something that needs to be patched out? And that sort of comes to, like, the vision and identity of the game.
And I think that, well, first of all, I want to get to Sean's thoughts on this, because I know you're like an Overwatch guy. And
the look down of shame Sean just gave.
Well, no, there's nothing. I'm not saying that parentheses derogatory. I'm saying it like I know that
it's okay. It's okay. You can
at least have played the game, if not do play it regularly. But like, what do you think about this? Like PvP, PvE, like, because you're a Souls guy too, right? Like balance.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, like, the thing with also like Souls games is it's very community based. Like, it is one of the it's such a weird way to explain Souls games. It's like, it's single player, but it's mostly not. Like, it is very community based. There's a lot of multiplayer aspects that go to it, but also you will find so many people that play Souls games where they're just like, I'm not changing my strategy whatsoever. I don't care that magic is the viable option in Elden Ring. That can piss off. I'm just going to do this. Glint Sword, piss off with that. I'm just going to go ahead and get the giant greatsword from Berserk and just hit everything. I do that. But it also comes... it's a fun time. But like, when it comes to like balance, like in, single player games, it's such a weird thing to me. Like, I understand, like, getting patches to make sure, things work and what have you. But I think also, like, developers are also, like, looking at, okay, let's look at the achievements. Let's see, are people really struggling against this character, against this boss? Oh, you found a way to cheese Melania by, there was a move where you could, like, frost stomp her and then use these blood flies to, like, pretty much evaporate her pretty quickly. And that was, like, the way to do it for, like, I don't remember how long it was, but like eventually they patched that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they patched that out.
It's like, but why patch that out though? You know what I mean? Like there's no, especially for your hardest boss ostensibly ever at the time. I haven't played the DLC.
Anyway, sorry.
I don't know. I just don't get it. I feel like it's fine to allow people.
Well, again, it's about identity, I think, right? It's about vision. Are you trying to create a power fantasy, right? Are you trying to create a power, or rather an power fantasy? Because arguably Dark Souls is about being not powerful, right?
Yeah,
like when you're playing the game, you're not supposed to be a superhero can walk in and kill anything. Anything can kill you. Even the weakest enemy can kill you. And so having this sort of ultimate power might go against the vision of it, because I think that some games certainly sort of intentionally incorporate imbalance as a design choice, right? Mm-hmm. It creates that unique gameplay experience. The difference between the philosophy of Doom 2016, right, and Doom Eternal, where in Doom 2016 you are an ungodly super killing beast that can't be taken down, you can just stand there and mow things down.
Yes.
And then in Doom Eternal, where you are certainly more of a weaker character and you have to keep moving and you have to kind of get into this dance.
Well, and then there's like
fighting.
And then there's the Ludo. Don't get me started on the Ludo narrative aspect of that game, where they paint you like this legendary badass, and then you're just weaker than in the last game that they had, where you just woke up and nobody's heard of you.
It's getting older, man. His knees are getting creakier.
Yeah.
He's doing God. He's doing God.
There's this concept of perfect imbalance, right? It's a theory that suggests that slight imbalances create more interesting strategic choice, and that helps to keep gameplay fresh, right? And I actually am a big fan of this. Perhaps you guys have heard of StarCraft. StarCraft is sort of the big popular RTS game, and it is famous in that it has 3 different armies, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not orcs versus humans or whatever. You have the Protoss, you have the Zerg, and then you have the Terran, and each one is sort of rock paper scissors against another. And so by having these asymmetries between the different races, you are able to evolve different strategies on how you're going to go into it. So if I'm a Zerg and I'm playing against a Protoss, I'm going to play very differently than if I'm a Zerg and I'm up against a Terran, or if I'm a Terran against a Protoss, or if I'm a Terran against a Zerg, right? So you create these sort of long-lasting strategy things, right, that you've evolved because of the imbalances. If you're in a game like an Overwatch, right, then if you see a Reaper, right, you know that Reaper has certain bonuses for or certain weaknesses to your character at any given moment, right? You know that, that character can kill me, or I'm going to go kill that one, right? That sort of imbalance creates the strategy, and it creates the interesting moments, because frankly, if every character is perfectly similar, that can be very dull.
Well, sorry, Sean, you go.
No, it's just remembering Overwatch, and I miss the Winston days where everyone just picked Winston and just each other for hours. Gosh,
Winton,
the big monkey.
Winton, say your thing, because I want to look up something.
I think that okay. I'm not sure if I've said it on the podcast before, but if I have, feel free to stop me. I'll try and be as brief as possible. I don't like in hero shooters the way that they balance the game by not letting you be the same character multiple times on a team. I think that's restricting. I think that's limiting. Some would even say tyrannical.
Nico, what game caused you to think about this?
Apex.
I wonder. Oh, I thought you were going to say Hit Game Concord. Okay.
Apex. Yeah, no, Concord beta for the hit game Concord. Well, I didn't want to get bullied again. No, it is because it is Concord beta for the hit game Concord. Everybody knows it, but like,
damn right.
But it's Apex, right? Like it's, you know, why can't we have 3 lifelines on a team? And the answer is always, well, you could just like sit and like get healed all the time or whatever, right? Or there's probably better examples of if you have 3 of these on a team, it breaks
That's a pretty good example, actually.
Yeah, right.
That is what I would most fear, is that exact scenario, personally.
Right. But what if you could do it? Like, that's my thing. Like, I'm like, I could be on both sides of this. And it's like, I don't know. I think it's fun. I think it's cool. I mean, I think they'd have to balance it differently, for sure. But like, you know, I think the idea of just having one character, one player is like a shortcut to balance. Right? Being like, okay, this character does this. Are they going to be good? Who knows? You can only have one of them. Whereas, like, as opposed to creating characters that can synergize with themselves and not break the game.
10 Elements in chat has the answer. Let there be free play lobbies.
Yes.
And Overwatch does do that. Overwatch does do that.
Sick. Okay. Well, then that solves the problem.
What the heck?
There are certain games that certainly do that, yeah.
Yeah.
That does solve the problem, right? And I think it's a lot like that whole, like, we talked about the Olympics briefly in the pre-show.
Oh, gosh.
Well, the idea of an Olympics that allows you to have PEDs. Like, just to be, like, performance-enhancing drugs.
So that you can... Like, what the
sorry. Hell? Yeah, I saw you questioning, but... The idea of just being like, okay, let's test the human limits and see how far we can go.
But that's gonna turn out.
Here's our normal shit, and here's the bioengineered freaks, the monsters hitting up space.
Son.
Freak. I wouldn't say freaks, but definitely the monsters.
That's where it goes, though, right?
Like nanomachine.
Yeah. You give it an inch, and then they take a mile on that, and it's like, well, this guy's more drug than human at this point.
Yeah, like
why not? Why not?
Because that's going to be so bad.
For who?
For a lot of people. Do you know, like, how... Okay, so, like...
I'm for the like, 10 people that qualify, that opt in.
No, because, like, a lot of people, like... okay, so, I do a lot of, like, fitness stuff. And, you know, I'm on, like, fitness TikTok and what have you. Yeah. And a lot of guys, I've noticed, are having, like, a lot of, like, dysmorphia where they're, like, instead of, like, looking into, okay, how can I better myself? So many people are, like, looking to those that, like, do take steroids. And, like, you see a lot of the younger generation kind of, like, looking up to those people, like, okay, if I want to get to that, I should do that. And so if you're introducing that at an actual, like, you know, paid, you know,
but if people
putting them on a pedestal, but it doesn't matter because that's what's going to happen. People are going to look up to them saying, the only way I'm ever going to get to that is if I take steroids. Doesn't matter, like, the steps beforehand, because trust me, you still have to do, like, a lot of work. Not to say, you know, steroids is the end all be all, like, you know, but you do have to work to get there, and it does help big time. But at the same time, people are going to...
I think you're right. For the
record. But people are going to see that and like, the only way I'm ever going to be able to do that is if I take these steroids. And like a lot of young impressionable people are going to see that. And that's why I think, like, while yes, funny, great, it'd be awesome to see, there are so many bad implications that would come with that.
I have a solution.
Bits aside. Yeah. What's up?
When you get to the Olympics, it's like the lobby restriction, right? Only certain people can take certain drugs to balance it out.
Right.
Gosh.
So you have to limit yourself and make a team, right? I think it all comes back to PvP, basically.
Yeah,
it's always comes back to PvP.
Is the Olympics PvP?
It should be PvE, actually.
What they should Olympics should be PvE. They have, like, the employees of the Olympics take the drugs, and the people who don't take the drugs have to compete against them.
Yes. Gosh,
I love free play lobby, bro.
PvE Olympics would be sick.
Oh my gosh,
dude, that'd be nasty. And
there's like an occasional, like, okay, we got whoever's in seat J24, come on down, and they like come down, and you now have to like do like.
You mean keep the athletes the way they are? Yes. And have normals compete against, like, it's a lottery system. If you get a ticket to the Olympics, you are entered in to potentially be in
No,
them.
no. You have 4 years to do whatever you want to do to prepare yourself. But you will have to perform say okay, I have to do sharpshooting in 4 years. I've never done this. But you can do whatever you want. No, whatever you want to do, however you want to do, they won't test you. Oh, I have to do boxing. Okay, cool. I like that. Let's do this.
Oh, what a great idea.
Make this
Dude, the
happen.
Crub Olympics is going to be lit. Oh my
That
God.
sounds, gosh.
Yeah.
Just like, all right, Crubscriber 323, come on down.
Yeah.
You have to fist fight Nico inside the Otacon.
Inside the Otacon.
Yeah, I didn't even say it right. Doesn't matter.
Sean, next tier list
Man.
you do should be which Mario and Sonic characters would have taken the drugs for the Olympics.
Oh, true.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm out here. I'm helping.
Oh man, dude! If Sonic were on PEDs, I mean, who knows what would happen, man?
I think he might be on ADHD meds though.
He kind
yeah,
of.
that's not a PED.
The Chaos
that's
Emeralds are
prescribed.
kind of like performance enhancing drugs, right? Because he turns supersonic.
That's true. I guess in that regard,
Sonic
that makes
characters. On
that would make the
PEDs.
Infinity Stones and the Dragon Balls also PEDs.
I looked up Sonic characters on PEDs, and the first thing was Sonic Frontiers teaches children to use steroids. All right, I'm not looking anymore.
Dude,
I'm
what
gonna
actually,
Google that
Chris?
one.
What is the effect of the Chaos Emeralds? If you collect all, however many there are, what is first of all, how many are there? And second of all, what do they do once you actually get them? Is it like a one time you burn it, or is it like a you just have this power now? If you possess the gems.
That's a great question. It's poorly defined. Usually it just seems to be whatever's convenient and then they scatter across the world. So
Okay.
the gameplay mechanic is it takes a ring per second from you.
Mhm.
Okay.
But
Wait, so you have to pay, so it costs you to use them?
yeah, and then you run out of
Makes
rings
sense.
and you turn back to normal. But they've stated that the rings don't exist in universe recently, I think, even though they do. So that's a difficult
So the-
question.
So
Just-
the rings are not diegetic in Sonic.
No, he just
Apparently,
holds on to them. Where does he put them then?
Oh, that's insane.
where would you put them, Sean?
Insane.
I don't know. I'm going to type.
I mean,
looking this
Sean, where do you put your currency that doesn't exist? It's not
In
like
the
it's
bank.
over the internet. Yeah, it's not like our money isn't digital.
I mean, Sonic might be using Apple Pay at this point.
Yeah, legit. Like, do you take Sonic Pay?
Where does Sonic keep his rings?
Right before the
And it
Chaos
just-
Emerald scatter, they're like, "Oh, it's just going to ask you a question." It holds out an iPad for it.
Oh, 20%.
He puts them. He puts them in the pouches in his shoes.
And he looks, and Sonic he's like, "It's gonna ask you a question."
Wait,
He looks away.
there's an actual Archie comic that explains this. Hold on.
Those aren't canon, Sean.
They should
Come
be.
on, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, they could be canon to the Lara Sue Chronicles.
Oh,
But-
the Laura Sue
Okay.
Chronicles, you say?
Yeah.
One perk.
What do you think
What's
would
up?
happen if they? What do you think would happen if they put steroids in that?
I think they already did. Hold on.
I
What game
What
would be
is-
better with steroids?
like me being on steroids and playing it, or somebody else.
Both.
Like the character.
Both.
I think Forspoken would be a better game if she was on steroids.
Or spoken.
It'd be 5 spoken then. Yeah.
Yeah, she would. I feel like the game would have been much better, better perceived, and just have her screaming the entire time while just beating up everybody. No magic, just punches everybody.
Did anyone play that game?
I played the demo.
I've only heard of it. What type of game is it? Forspoken?
It's like a. It's kind of
Sounds
like
like a.
it's
a
like a
Hellblade.
Final Fantasy-esque type of game. Like I played the demo and I really enjoyed some of the magic stuff that I could do, but there's a lot of talking from spot to spot that kind of took me out of it.
Hmm.
It was like, okay,
Mhm.
I have no time to think or even listen to the music. Great. This is
Okay.
the demo.
I have to be careful because this is the breastfeeding page. But if you look at Knuckles, he kind of looks like he took steroids, right?
You know,
Like right
yeah,
No.
So I think
Yeah.
Knuckles is most likely to take steroids.
right. He took
Why
some
did-
EGH.
Can we back it up though? You just said the breastfeeding page.
Oh, are you
Yes.
unaware?
Yeah, do you not
Yes.
know about this, Sean?
Is that an
Oh,
actual
boy.
thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can see Laura Sue being
No.
breastfed by her mother as Canucks The legally distinct Knuckles is looking on.
I had to stop myself.
Chris, for the people, what exactly is the Lara Sue Chronicles? Give us the spark notes of what it is.
It's a gift from God.
Okay,
Ken Penders.
True.
Ken Penders, the continuation to the classic Archie Sonic storyline, Mobius 25 years later.
Legal owner of Evil Sonic.
Released 20 years after. It continued the story.
I was gonna say, didn't he like re-release it and then like there were only like some minor changes, but some of them made like no sense. Like for example, like he took out a drawing of like the island and then just made a PNG of it instead or something like that.
Yep. There's just an actual real ass poorly photoshopped island in one of the panels now.
Man.
Like that's amazing to me. I wonder if it was like a copyright thing.
Nope. It's just the logo for his company. He just put it in. Oh, here's Sonic burping. Anyway, what are we talking about?
Here's Sonic burping.
I think we were in the middle of talking about how some games intentionally incorporate imbalances.
Yeah.
They should balance. They should balance Sonic.
The modded Olympics is going to be great.
The thing I was thinking about with there was some talk about like you could just not use it. Especially in competitive games, though, there is the issue. Because I remember specifically on the school bus in the Mario Kart DS days, once snaking, if you recall, infected the way people played it, it was like you either snaked and you had a chance, or you didn't snake and people would lap you and you stopped having fun. And if you're not familiar, in Mario Kart DS, you can chain like drift boosts into each other left and right, which makes like a snaking thing. Right.
It's called mini turbos now in the meta for Mario Kart 8.
Oh, is that what they call it now? The mini turbos.
Turbo. Yeah.
Oh,
that's not as fun.
The loop. Okay. Yeah. But I specifically remember because, riding the school bus, you had people who just had Mario Kart because it was the game you got with your DS, right? Mm-hmm. The one parents would get you. Very casual people. And I just remember them getting so frustrated as the rest of us would play together and start snaking. And then we taught them, and they're like, I'm not having fun doing this. I'm going to not play anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing that, like, I think also I think that also would help when it comes to balance. Like, people seeing, no one's having fun without multiplayer because, like, they found the meta and there's no other viable option to play.
Yeah.
We should probably fix that. Like, I think that's one of the instances where it's like, all right, we have to actually balance this or else, like, we're going to lose a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think straight up, if you could patch Mario Kart DS, they would have patched that out like instantly, knowing Nintendo.
Yeah, which is a thumbs down, because like I don't know, in Mario Kart 8, like they made a lot of changes, like over time, and especially with like the newer updates, right? Like the meta used to be Waluigi Wiggler was the meta. It was like the best. The best combo.
Right.
I don't know what it is now because I like stopped paying attention because I was like I kind of liked that.
Yeah, I think it's like Rosalina now is the best.
Gotta be Rosalina on like a bike or something. It's gotta be.
Gosh, meanwhile I'm just like, I pick Yoshi because I like Yoshi.
That's fair. Mm-hmm. I pick Toad because that's who I always pick.
I play Wario because he's heavy.
So I think that there is sort of this, as a developer, as a publisher, whatever, right? When I'm making a game, I sort of have to take into account the various skill levels of all the players, right? So maybe Rocket League's a good example of this.
Ooh.
It needs to be something that, Nico can pick up and play, right? And it has these sort of simple core mechanics that allows somebody who is maybe not particularly interested in platforming and not necessarily interested in sort of momentum-based gameplay, and you can still have a good time and you can still have fun, right? Whereas the more advanced techniques like air dribbling, right, is something that is still there. It's still capable, you can do it, but it's more depth for a skilled player versus those newer players. And I think that balancing comes into play in that occasion as well, right? So not only do we have sort of the PvP competitive, viability thing going on, but also the ability for people of different gameplay skills to have a good time, like you're talking about with the snaking thing, right? Like if the only way that you can enjoy the game is to be really good at it, then that sucks for a lot of people. That sucks for anybody who's not the best player in the world, right?
Right.
It's also a very tedious action, for like that example specifically, because you are just mashing the DS's bad shoulder button the whole time and doing the weird bad D-pad movement, right? It's just very physically exhausting after a few races on top of it.
I think the risk is that when you have these sort of constant balance tweaks, because we now live in this world where no developer feels that they need to produce a game that's finished, right? They don't need to make a finished game, and it doesn't need to be good, and we'll just throw it out there, and we'll do a beta, and then we'll do a, after the beta comes out, we'll figure out that this gun is broken. And we'll let the public be our QA. And we'll fire our QA because they tried to unionize, and we'll just let the public be our QA.
Like with Apex Legends,
This is why we need Sigma games that come out completed and can't be patched and updated.
This is not going to happen anymore, unfortunately. But because of this, we do sort of live in this world of constant tweaking and constant balance tweaks and constant patches and constant whatever. And I recognize how this is intended to extend the lifespan of a game, right? Like, the reason why they patch out your Helldivers is because they want you to keep playing. And so they make it harder, and they do this, and they do that, and it brings you in. Maybe World of Warcraft might be a good example of them, changing the game. And I think that today you can look at like a World of Warcraft, and it's not the same game that it was when it came out by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. So by having these sort of constant tweaking, you may potentially end up with a game that isn't what you bought.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I feel oftentimes that I am not alone, but certainly less backed than I think I should be in the opinion that I like getting better at a game. And I like that when I'm better at it, it is now easy for me because I've been doing it for so long, right? And like, I don't need it. Like, I don't need the game I don't need the goalposts to move. I don't need it to get harder. I want to be good at the game. I'm now good at the game. And then they move the goalposts. That's so demoralizing for me, right? Whereas, like, I play the drums. Now I'm a good drummer, and I can play the drums, and it doesn't change.
But then I sneak in at the middle of the night, and I move your drums around, and I untighten them a little bit, and I'm like, you just have to deal with it.
Yeah. But the thing is with that, the mechanics are still the same, right? It's like, it's not like, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking from like a place of having practiced this, but like, I don't know, the position of your drum kit, it's like, it is what it is. It doesn't matter. It's all about the mechanics of playing the drums. It doesn't change. I don't know. And
another angle here, going back to the VG247 article, which I'll have in the show notes. Something the CEO of Arrowhead, the Helldivers 2 developer, was saying was not so much about the quote itself or what he's saying specifically. The incendiary breaker was like 30% of all terminated sessions at some point. Very much a meta gun. Is that a problem? Yes. Is it a big one? I don't know. We'll discuss it. If I were to infer from that, they're looking at their usage analytics and I guess attempting to not like flat even out, but try to balance the usage of guns in the game, which sounds noble on paper, but I don't know what that serves the player base. I feel like you look at the less used guns and try and bring those up instead of flattening the one that's high.
There is a philosophy of always buffing in certain games. Yeah. Right? Like you look at the least used, the worst, and you say, okay, we're always going to buff. We're never going to nerf. But the problem, of course, becomes that eventually everything is too buffed, right? Like that's the problem.
But it would make you more conservative with your rollouts in theory. Like
I think the question again comes down to vision, right? Which is clearly with Helldivers, their vision is that people are going to have incredibly varied, unique, personalized loadouts, right? Like you're gonna find the thing that you like, and you're going to use that gun, and it will be a side grade, not an upgrade or a downgrade, but a side grade to every other weapon. And I understand why that might be a goal. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand why it might be a goal.
Valid. Very valid.
I think that really the debate comes down to a question between whether or not you want a community-driven or a developer-driven balance system, right? Do you want it to be something where you have this cohesive vision of a game from a single auteur who is coming down and saying, no, it will be this way, right? Which is how, to be fair, we get some of our greatest games. We have somebody with this sort of demented vision that they come down, and next thing you know, you've got Death Stranding, right? Like, a game that arguably no one would ever have made, right? Like, if you were to give that game at any point in alpha to a group of players, they would have turned it into Fortnite. Like, it's not a game that people would want, right? Like, even still, it's incredibly divisive because you go and you play it, and it's like half the people who play that game don't get it and don't want it. I hate the game. I think Death Stranding piece of shit. But, like, you know, there are people... There are people who think it's absolutely fantastic. It's really good, super fun game.
I think it's fantastic,
And I think that's the sort of thing where it's a question of, do you want that sort of developer-driven, or do you want it to be community-driven? Because if it's developer-driven, then there's the chance, or perhaps even the bonus, right, of having this sort of singular vision of, we are creating a game where every single weapon is something that is a side grade. But if you were to use it as community driven, right, the community's choice would be, well, I like this gun, it should be stronger.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know, man. I feel like, you know, for a game like, just going back to Helldivers really quickly, I think that for them, they have a very specific problem, and I'm getting real close here. We're getting real close to the mic for this one because I need people to hear me on this. If they want people to use more guns in Helldivers, they should have a way to test the guns before you deploy and, like, are part of the major order success or failure. They don't have that.
Is there not a way to training room thing?
No.
Interesting.
And if they want people to use more guns, use different things, then perhaps they should give them the option to test these things out and see what their personal loadout would be, rather than like, oh, I don't want to, you know, contribute negatively to the major order and like roll back progress for other players. You know, I'm just going to use the meta build. Right? Like, so that's, I do, and that goes back to M's point earlier about the gun feeling different and there being other factors outside of just the balance of the thing itself. I don't know. That's and that's the state of the union for me as far as balance goes. I don't think balance is killing games. I think that's a little dramatic. However, I do think some games are killed by balance. And I think that it gets annoying a lot of the time. More annoying than helpful.
I don't play Helldivers 2, but the idea of having to sit and check a patch note at least once a week or whatever to be like, all right, is the thing I'm doing different now? I don't know if that sounds fun.
No, it does not. And to be honest,
it's not a good experience in a lot of games. Diablo 4, I played through it, and it was shocking to maybe played for 3 weeks, right? And it was at the beginning of a new season, so not like at the launch or anything, you know, like regardless though, every single maybe 3 days, maybe 4 days, there was a significant patch. And this patch, you had to go and say, well, what's changed now? Is my character build even like viable anymore? And if not, how many hours behind does that put me? Because now I got to go find new gear, and it's going to take me, you know, 20 hours to get built up again.
Yeah,
that's not a good experience.
Yeah,
that's not a good experience.
Thumbs down from me.
I don't know. I guess I tend to be kind of that guy who comes in here and is like, well, actually, I think I'm sort of. But in this particular case, it's very much sort of the vision and more about the specific use cases, right? Because if we are talking about a game where you're playing as Superman, then why would you ever balance anything, right? You're supposed to be overpowered. But if you're supposed to be weak, then maybe it makes sense to do it. And if it's supposed to be competitively viable, then it should be. And
Yeah. And I think that's fair. Sean, Chris, any other closing thoughts on balance?
No.
Bring back Odd Job in 007.
Bring back Odd Job.
Oh yeah, Odd Job in 007 GoldenEye with the hat.
Right.
I hope he's in the IO Hitman.
I hope so too.
Oh yeah, true. The IO Bond game. Hitman's a good one.
The Bond game, not the IO Hitman. Sorry.
The briefcase. They did bring the briefcase. The briefcase was a glitch that like it spun slowly through the air and like tracked your target.
Right.
And instead of like, they did patch it out then, but they made it available as like an unlockable.
Yeah,
and I kind of like that too.
I remember that clip, seeing them on the beach, and he just like throws it, and like they're on the like water ski as it just follows
and
them
it
the
follows
entire time.
It follows the water ski. The
and
classic,
then they finally
dude.
like stop, they get off, and then just boom, dead right in front of them.
It's so good. It's so good. And I'm also a pro bring back cheat codes as well. I think I'm very pro bring back cheat codes. And
cheat codes, I miss those.
Cheat code lobbies, things like that. Who knows?
That's my boomer thing I yell about. Bring back cheat codes. I want a big hit on everybody. Bring it back in Madden.
Yep.
I want Chris, LeBron James in Madden.
Yes, agree. Any thoughts on balance?
Nope, but I'm watching this Hitman briefcase versus jet ski clip that's now in the show notes, and that is incredible.
Yes, it's so good.
Isn't it?
What a good
so
game.
good, yeah.
All right, Nico, I hear you trying to close this. Are you trying to segue us to our Crubscriber question of the week?
I certainly am. Our Crubscriber question of the week, where you, yes, you, can get our Patreon for 1 month and put as many of them in as you want. It will help us out. Please support us there if you want to get in on the action. Chris, would you care to read today's, or do you want me to?
I hate reading, but I'm going to do it. We have a question in from the One True Blue, who says, with the 3D Sonic movie approaching and an inevitable, that's tricky, fourth probably on the way, it's made me fear that it could get the exhausting MCU treatment, which I think we've theorized on here before, actually. With other video games, 2 movies, shows that have been releasing lately, how do you think the exhaustion could be avoided or at least mitigated? And do you think there's already an oversaturation of adaptations?
Oh,
if we're not there, we're getting there.
That's a really good question.
That is a good question. So how do you avoid fatigue is a really difficult question, and it mostly comes down to making well-written and consistently written and high quality product. And that is the answer, and that's expensive and time consuming and difficult.
You're saying this in a freshly post Borderlands the movie world, of course, which goes against everything we just said.
I feel like Borderlands the movie has set video game movies back quite a lot.
Oh, all it did was prove that video game movies can still be absolute pieces of shit.
Right.
We'll be, by the way, talking about Borderlands here shortly.
At some point soon.
It at least helps prove the other way too, though, because I only hear about that movie when people are saying, man, that movie was bad. I didn't see any organic promotion for that movie at all. So I guess there is a world where there can be a lot of these, but you don't get tired of them just because you forget they happen basically daily. And that's okay.
I think... Oh, go ahead.
No, you go, Sean.
Like, for me, I kind of look at it more as like how films throughout the years, like there used to be like a huge Western boom way back in the day where like pretty much all the big movies were Westerns, and it really took like a change in that formula to start making, anti-Westerns, to actually start making more interesting stories. And those are a lot of the Westerns that we remember to this day. And so I think like once, we have the formula out there with a lot of these video game adaptations, it's like, all right, how do we actually, make this interesting instead of just doing the copy paste formula, which it's gonna happen. The MCU has done that, but then like you see like the anti-comic book movies such as Logan. Logan is very much like, I view that more as a Western itself than an actual comic book movie, despite it, being a comic book movie.
Yeah, people seem to love it.
Oh, it's so good. It is my favorite like comic book movie.
But Logan also kind of proves the point, right? Like Logan is a well-written and internally consistent film.
Yeah.
It is something that, in its universe, it's perfect. It fits in. It's realistic, and
I think that's also the big thing. The universe is, you see so many like trying to build up to something new, and I really hope they don't start doing that in a lot of these like video game adaptations, where it's like, all right, now we have the Mario movies coming out, we got the Sonic stuff. What if we start doing these? What if we did Kirby? And then it's like, all right, now we're just going to get a Super Smash Brothers one because we have them all lining up to this to fight Master Hand, but it's actually not, that whole thing. I don't think that happens.
I think you just breathe that into reality. It sounds so accurate.
If that happens, I need someone to clip this, bring it up to me, and I will never forgive myself for this.
Good. You should stop forgiving yourself for things as it is.
I don't.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
It's fine.
It's very much about just I think good writing, right? Because like Borderlands is poorly written. That's why it did badly. It's not like just a marketing blitz. People are able to watch a trailer and go, "Wow, that looks bad." You see Kevin Hart say something stupid, and you go, "That sounds bad. I don't want to go see that film." Yeah. I think with Sonic in particular, and I'm trying to kind of stick with that because that was what the question was. Sonic, if it is just Sonic 2, 3, right? Like if it's just the same thing with Idris Elba being absolute no change, no character arcs, and it's just the same thing every single time, right? That's when it's going to end up being, I don't want to watch this anymore and we're tired of it. Because I think you're right that there will be a Sonic 4. It seems inevitable. These films are making a lot of money, right? People seem to be mostly enjoying them. Not the Knuckles TV show so much, but people seem to be mostly enjoying it. So like, as long as it is reasonably well written and internally consistent, I think that those two things are the most important part, because Sonic isn't the best written film of all time, but it is pretty consistent internally.
Right.
The universe that he's in is the Sonic universe, and it fits.
Yeah. So I have perhaps a more direct response. Well, no, we've been directly responding to this question, but like, okay. For Sonic specifically, I feel like Sonic started as like more of a middle budget movie than like the Marvel movies or whatever, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think
not
like
have a Marvel budget,
right? And I think like we need. So I think for me, well, okay, actually, I lied. To piggyback off of what Em has been saying, which I do agree on, pretty much all fronts. I think number one is, well, first of all, it all comes back to good, strong writing, good universe, internal consistency, all that. Number one, characters I care about. And that means development, that means arcs, that means stories, that means importance, that means, you get something out of these characters that, that you wouldn't get from just, oh, hey, I'm Sonic and I run fast, right? You got to get something.
Why are you doing a Nico impression?
That's a little weird,
because he is me and I am him.
Oh, okay.
And,
okay.
He being Sonic, of course.
Yeah.
And so characters and stories and then two is like stories you care about, right? Not only do the characters have to develop and be fluid and learn and grow and dynamic and have an arc, they also have to be involved in stories that make you care, right? Number three is respect to the property. And this goes back to the end of the question, which was, are there too many adaptations? I'm just going to say flat out yes, because
you're not excited for Jack Black Minecraft? It's going to save cinema?
Oh, God, dude, don't even get
I forgot
me started.
about that.
I just think that like we need, there's been for my entire lifetime a distinct and noticeable lack of original like movies and scripts, right? And like completely original concepts. And I understand that is a money-making maneuver, but perhaps spend less on the movies, and then you can get away with more, right? We've seen so many movies be great on a budget, and I don't think a movie like Sonic needs a huge budget like that. I think it needs the charm, to steal Chris's catchphrase word, is charm. Because that's something that like draws me to Sonic. I've never played a Sonic game. I love the property. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just based on like the silliness and the OTT of the characters. That only lasts for so long. You give Sonic an arc, you give him like a good character moment and moments, give him a good story, give James Marsden a good story. I'm in. I'm there. I think my other thing I'd like to see, of course, and I said this for Marvel as well, is different genres of movie. I want to see a legitimate Sonic horror movie. I want to see a slasher.
Oh,
I want to see like. Please share, because
is that no wait.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, right? Like we don't expand to these markets. It's all blockbusters, and it's all the average genre. The average genre now is superhero movie. It's like a little comedy. There's some romance plot lines. There's some action. And really the story says absolutely nothing. And I think we need to avoid that. I'm sorry that I've been on this pedestal here the whole episode, but it's just
okay.
I saw Top Gun Maverick, and I thought it had all of these things that I just listed. Respect to the property.
Being a good movie.
Being a good movie on many fronts.
I'm just imagining Sonic now being like the co-star in Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah,
like
that's where everybody goes when I go to Top Gun Maverick. I go to Top Gun Maverick as a good example of a property that's not an original property, but it's a movie that's enthralling and gives the audience something on more than just a surface level, and it treats the characters with respect, and it treats the property with respect, and it treats the legacy with respect.
Also not a property people are tired of, right? They're been forever since the Top Gun movie, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Sure, but if they kept that internal consistency and they keep that, like, they have something to say, I'm in. I'm there.
I'm just imagining Tom Cruise doing his stunts. But then the camera
with
pans and
Sonic.
Sonic's there with him. Yeah. And just,
everybody, it's me.
Gosh.
Whoa, how are we going to get out of this pickle? Wow, Nico.
They better do a shirtless volleyball scene.
Maverick, I'm going too fast. I'm going to crash.
Like if they do the shirtless volleyball scene in Top Gun Maverick with Sonic, do you think like they're going to actually give Sonic abs during that as well?
Then James Marsden will look over and be like, I wish Sonic had that. Oh wait, there he is.
And then it pans to Glenn Powell and he's just there.
Yeah, but they also give Marsden they give him steroids because you have to look good.
Oh right. Yeah. And then they stick
he's
one
not even
normal,
in it, he just has to be off to the side, but he's still shirtless, and then
sweaty.
They
stick one normal like non-actor in the movie as well and give them like a major speaking role.
Yeah, where it's like, Sonic, they just dropped the bomb. We need to go.
I better go catch it.
What do you think about this, Jim? And it just like pans over to just a normal guy, and he's like, he's
clearly not even there. Like they just like asked this guy from like Coney Island.
Like not a trained actor like goes to like try to pet Sonic, and like his hand just goes through it.
He's still holding like the $50 they gave him just to say this.
Oh man, yeah.
Good,
Chris, Sean, what do you guys feel about this? I'm sorry, I hogged it.
I was worried about Sonic getting overplayed, but then they closed down Paramount TV studios today, so I don't think there's going to be more Sonic shows. So I think that worked out. Rest in peace to all the people who got laid off and lost their jobs, but at least I'm better for it.
Wow.
They also made the Star Trek shows, right? Like anything Paramount TV related is gone now. Yeah. So
thankfully, there wasn't a whole lot on Paramount Plus. The was television that they did, right? Like, what did they have?
Beavis and Butthead.
Halo?
30 Star Trek shows, I think. Picard.
Which apparently the Star Trek shows are good, but I don't watch Star Trek, so I have no idea. But I watched the Beavis and Butthead movie that they put on there, and that was actually pretty all right. I'll give them that.
Yeah. Sorry, oh no, you know what? I will save this chat that I was about to read for the post show.
Okay.
That's probably a good idea if you're looking at the one I'm looking at.
I am looking at the one you're looking at.
Okay. Is that the end of this episode?
It
I think
is.
that might be the end of this episode.
Well, everyone,
Folks.
thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us for another installment of the Crubcast. I have been All Hail Buckets. This has been Moriarty, Wolf KO San, and Chris Mykonos fan for Crub. We'll see you in the next one.